Hello, Internet. It is I, Malik Aaron, and welcome back to Box Office Predictions. Today, we're going to be talking about Paddington in Peru. So, as usual, we're going to be going over the pros and cons. So, let's get to it. Pros. So, Paddington. Never really talked about the Paddington movies on this channel before. So, getting to talk about it now is pretty cool, actually. So, let's just talk about them. So Paddington 1. This came out in 2014 slash 2015, depending on which country we're talking about. Because in the US came out in 2015, but in the UK came out in 2014. Now why is that? Well, Paddington came out in the UK first because Paddington is very much a big British property. It's based off a children's book series, and Paddington is kind of like a pop culture icon over there. So it would make sense that the UK release would be more of a priority than the US release. It's very much the same with like James Bond, like the James Bond movies. So yeah, Paddington came out in the UK first, amongst other countries, and then it came over to the States later. When it came to the States, it came out in January, in the middle of January. Historically, it's not a good thing to do because January has a pretty rough reputation. But Paddington was different, though. Paddington had hella strong reviews. I think the score was like 97, 98%, which is absurd for really any movie. But yeah, it opened with about 19 million. And it had really good legs, and it resulted in making 76 million domestically, 250 million worldwide, on a budget of 55 million. Undisputed success. So there was no surprise that they would make a Paddington 2. This is where things get a little weird because Paddington 2 came out in both 2017 and 2018, literally the same situation as the first movie, but there's a difference though. See, the thing is, Paddington 1, when it came out in the States, it was distributed by the Weinstein Company. I think you know where I'm going with this. So, a few months before Paddington 2 was supposed to come out in the States, some really, really, really serious shit went down with the Weinstein Company, specifically with Harvey Weinstein, over allegations from over 100 women about sexual harassment, rape, assault, horrible shit. And that pretty much tanked the Weinstein Company right then and there. So obviously, it would be like the worst decision ever to have Paddington 2 be associated, really any movie be associated with the Weinstein Company, especially a family film. So at the last minute, basically, like literally 2 months before it was supposed to come out in the States, Warner Brothers got the distribution rights to the movie. So they had like a small amount of time to like really market the movie effectively. So that resulted in the movie doing a lot worse than the first movie in the States, despite this movie literally being like the most acclaimed movie ever. Like, that's not even a joke. Like, for a long while, had a 100% critic score, had the most reviews for a 100% movie like ever. Like, it was crazy. But then some dickhead put in a negative review, dropping it down to 99%. So yeah. Yeah, yeah, so there's that. But yeah, I mean, the sequel opened like 11 million, Made like 40 million domestically. Still made over 200 million internationally, so about the same as the first. But there was a very noticeable drop off with the sequel. So I imagine that would give the studio some pause when it comes to making a third one. But eventually they decided, you know what? Let's fucking do it. And they did. And here we are with Paddington, Peru, which has been out internationally for a few months. Started in November in the UK, being first. It's already made over 100 million internationally. So now here we are. So yeah, Paddington, with the success of the last two movies, the critical and commercial success of those movies, obviously that's a pro. How could it not be? It'd be absurd to label those as cons. So yeah. So that's pro number one. Pro number two, there's a lack of real direct competition out there. I mean, I know there's Dogman, but Dogman had a rather shocking second weekend drop. So that's really showing some weakness. And Paddington and Peru could take advantage of said weakness. And besides, there's no real serious family movies coming out till March. So that gives this movie time to breathe, time to you know, survive and thrive. So, yeah, and plus every other movie out is very much not family friendly, or if it is, it's a very old movie. So, yeah, besides Dogman, the lack of direct competition, I'll label that as a pro. Another pro is reviews for this movie, as expected, are very good. Not quite as good as the other two movies, but still a 93%. I mean, how could I look at that and be like, that's terrible? No. Yeah, 93% is still excellent. No doubt about that. There's no audience scores, so I can't comment on that. It's not popping up. So, yeah, but I have a cinema score, though. That's an A. The other Paddington movies, what did they get? A, all A's. So consistent A's. So Paddington Peru has been received as well as the other two movies. So yeah, word of mouth for this movie is spectacular. So that's obviously going to be a pro. Another pro is that this weekend is a double holiday weekend. Valentine's Day was on Friday. Monday is President's Day. So that gives this movie, two chances to make serious money. So yeah, as I mentioned in Captain America Brave New World video, Valentine's Day is a day where it's one of those high tide raises all boats type holidays where every movie benefits no matter what it is. And obviously that will give Paddington Peru an artificial boost on Friday. And with, President's Day, a holiday on Monday, kids are not going to be in school. So that'll definitely help this movie out even more. So yeah, the double holiday aspect, that is going to be a big old pro. Another pro, I think that's really it with pros. I mean, I could mention his preview numbers, 600K. I mean, that sounds awful, but this is a family movie in February. I mean, I know Dogman did way better in preview numbers, but Dogman had it's a bit more of an active fan base, a bit more rabid fan base than Paddington Peru. So yeah, I'm not really gonna look at these preview numbers like that seriously. Not gonna be too harsh towards it. So yeah, I guess his preview numbers, I'll just put that as in the mixed category. Okay, cons. I mentioned this with Captain America Brave New World. Valentine's Day can be a bit of a double-edged sword. So because of the artificial boost on Friday, that can have a negative effect on Saturday. Although I don't think the drop will be very significant for this movie because, family movies don't usually suffer that extreme decline compared to other genres. But the second Friday might be a little rough though. So there's that to look at. So yeah, the double-edged sword nature of Valentine's Day, I'll label that as a con. Well, in this case, it'll be more of a minor con compared to Captain America. Um, it's also the fact that it's been like 7 years since Paddington 2. That's kind of a long time, a bit too long for like a normal sequel. But then again, we've seen like sequels that have way larger like, gaps in time. Gaps between entries. Still do well, right? I mean, freaking like last year, no, what was it? Deadpool Wolverine. That was a 6 year gap, made $1 billion. Inside Out 2, 9 year gap, $1 billion. Moana 2, 8 year gap, $1 billion. So sometimes time really doesn't matter. And even like a movie like, say, I don't know, I guess like Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. I mean, that was what, an 11 year gap between like that and the first movie, and it still did spectacular, mainly because of how strong word of mouth was. But still, 7 years might be a little too long, so that's kind of a minor con. Is that it could have a negative effect, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it does. Depends on what it is. So I'll label that as a minor con. But I think that's really it. Yeah, I think that's really it. So opening weekend, looking at early numbers. Okay, I'm trying to go back to numbers. This is projected to hit like 12 to 13 million. Let me see. 12 to 13 million for the 3-day weekend. So right in between Paddington 1 and 2. So right in between. It could do a little better, but that's what it's looking like, 12 to 13 million. And then for the 4 days, it's looking like 15 million. I think it could do way better than that. Because, because it's a family movie, and family movies historically do really well for, on like the President's Day Monday. So, but we'll see. So I guess I'll go with like 13 to, 12 to 15 million for 3-day, and 4-day probably 15 to 18 million, something like that. And its legs should be really good. There's no way that it shouldn't be. I mean, next Friday's gonna suck, but after that, it's kind of smooth sailing. So, I don't know where it'll end up. Maybe like 40, 50, 60 million. More like 40 to 50 million to be more realistic. I'm gonna go with that. 40 to 50 million dollars for its domestic total. I mean, considering like the domestic run doesn't really matter in this case because it's all about the international run. That was the case for the first two movies. So yeah, basically the domestic box office is just kind of gravy at this point. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna go with. So that was Paddington in Peru, and we're done for the weekend. As I already mentioned, I'm not doing videos for these other movies because no, there's just I don't have like, yeah, it just wouldn't work out. So that's just it for the weekend. Now next weekend we got The Monkey, a movie I'm looking forward to because it looks very interesting. And Unbreakable Boy, a movie that was supposed to come out 3 years ago. So, yeah. That's next week, though. So, stay tuned for those. But, yeah, that's it. That's all. Make sure to subscribe, like this video, leave a comment, turn on notifications, share the whole drill. You want to check out more videos like this, I got playlists on the homepage. All previous prediction videos I made this year, the past few years. You want to watch any of my past prediction videos for this year, the past few years, you can go right ahead. There's also the canceled series where I went over all the movies that were supposed to come out but didn't. Paddington 3 or Paddington Peru. Talked about it one time. That was episode 212. I talked about it alongside Anyone But You, The Bike Riders, and Lisa Frankenstein. Talked about it, those 3 times, that one time, like in a video. So, yeah. So, you want to watch that episode or any other episodes I made on the channel, all 250 episodes, want to binge watch them all, go right ahead. There's also box office recaps where I go over the box office results for any particular month. My January recap, I plan on doing that later on Saturday. And then my February recap will be within like the first 2 weeks of March. So stay tuned for that as well. But if you want to watch any of the past recap videos of me on the channel, you can go right ahead. And yeah, that's it. That's all. I am out. Goodbye.